We Indians say we are the indigenous people of this country. They have tried to finish us off, but it's impossible. There must be about 30 million indigenous people making up the World Council of Indigenous Peoples with headquarters in Canada. In some places, anthropologists, sociologists, as they are called, say indigenous people are from the third or the fourth world. What a lie. We indigenous people are the first world. But what's happened is that all that we had has been stolen from us. You can see, our motherland is a gift our father gave us, but God gave it to us to work it. And I've yet to see a Creole out there with hoe and shovel working from sunrise to sunset to make the land produce. It is us, the Indians, who told to make the lands produce so that its markets will be full, so that our Indian sisters can sell the products we have in Tacolula, in Puxtan, in Tecal, and all around there. And when we sell it, it ends up here in San Salvador. You probably noticed that in the capital, there are many Indian brothers and sisters selling there, because you all live from the maize, rice, beans, sorghum, lane beans, fish, everything we eat here, not only us Indians, but you as well, because it's our mother who feeds us. But unfortunately, the politicians think that one can live only thanks to the millions of dollars. The dollars will run out one day, but our mother, the land, never, nor our hands. They will live. In short, in our thoughts, we want to be closer to the indigenous people, because when we are closer to the indigenous people, we are closer to God, our Father, who is our Father's Son, because He shines on us, He warms us. Where cotton is grown, when the planes fly over spraying poison, all the air gets polluted. This is affecting not only the coast, but all of us. That's what we feel constantly. That all the fish are dying, the crabs, the shrimps, all of that. In short, in everything that gives life, there is pollution. And now, mental pollution, which is worse. That means that we, the indigenous people, have the same rights as any white, as any Creole, because we are the roots from here to anywhere we go. And I think that on this day, which you have chosen to celebrate, there should be some photographs of our older brothers who are the chieftains of these tribes.
Fotografía de nuestros hermanos mayores que nosotros llamamos, que son los caciques en aquel.
Why? Because they weren't academics of the university. They were academics of the universe we live in. They knew when maize must be planted without putting fertilizer on it. We knew which kind of seeds were to be planted on slopes, on the flat, and in ravines. We knew when to harvest, when to thresh, and when to garner. I think you must know the history of the maize. I think you know it, don't you? The brothers at the university know it, don't you? The history of the maize? You don't? Unfortunately, we have to teach you.
Young ladies, all beautiful, all charming, it has been a great pleasure for me to meet you all and be of service to you, and discover that you are all extremely charming. You are all excellent people, and really, choosing Miss Charming is something, It's a personality prize. True, gentlemen? Please, give a hand in anticipation for the winner of Miss Charming. Ladies and gentlemen, applause for Miss Charming 1987.
Luisa Maria is an executive secretary. She likes children, she plays tennis and does gymnastics, and is of a friendly disposition. Her ambition is to study early childhood education in the United States in order to practice in El Salvador.
At the moment, there is in El Salvador, not only in El Salvador but all over the world, the use, and above all the abuse, of drugs. It's a problem we all know well, and the question, the topic, is about drugs. And the question is, in your opinion, how important is the existence of a program for the prevention of drug abuse?
Al uso indebido de las drogas.
En primer lugar, el uso de las drogas.
First of all, the use of drugs begins in the home, because sometimes parents don't really understand their children and don't give them the opportunity to really talk to them. And in my opinion, in our country and all over the world, this opportunity should exist, so that our children don't go to the streets instead of the home in search of love and affection, which they won't be able to find on the streets. Because the country's progress depends on its youth, and these campaigns are a wonderful thing for us, because it's really there that we are told what we should do and how to order our lives. And really, drug abuse is a campaign that must really be mounted and be supported by parents and obeyed by youth.
Many thanks, Miss Charming.
As a daughter, as a mother, or as a wife, we should feel proud because the women of El Salvador have been identified as being hard workers, be it in the home or outside as professionals.
I'm 19 years old. I'm from here, from San Salvador. I work as a waitress at the Imperial Hotel on Concepcion Street, San Salvador. We sign for 468 colones a month on the payroll. We get 300 colones. Our meals are deducted.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes?
Where are they?
Here, in El Salvador. I have one in the United States, but he's going to be deported.
What do you think of the situation here in El Salvador?
We're really in a bad way. Things are tough.
Why?
Because most people can't find work. The children are suffering. The children just as much as us. Take me. My wage isn't enough. I have 2 babies. They're both on the bottle.
I've had my children, my husband murdered in 1974 at the Tres Ceibas Las Hojas farm because he was working there as an administrator. The only crime he committed was there were some cooperatives there and he saved some grain for them. That was the crime for which he was killed, and they killed him. The committee has the name of Archbishop Romero because it was Archbishop Romero who advised us to form a Mothers' Committee in 1977. And that's when it was formed, on that day, the 24th of December, starting with a Mass. The idea was for all the mothers, all of us who were searching for our children, our brothers, or fathers, or any relative, to get together and form a small group, a committee, so that all of us together could say to the government, where are all our imprisoned relatives? And that's how this Committee of Mothers was formed on that day, the 24th of December, 1977. We asked Archbishop Romero if we could use his name, and he told us that after he died, we could give the committee his name, and that's what happened. That's what we called it, the Archbishop Oscar Arnulfo Romero Committee of Mothers and Relatives of Political Prisoners Disappeared and Assassinated of El Salvador, because it was him who gave us the initiative, who advised us to form it. He was killed because he used to tell the people the truth. He said that anyone who had relatives imprisoned, be it mothers or other relatives, should be told where the relative they were looking for was being kept. He gave his life because he told the truth, because here it is a crime to tell the truth. And we say the same thing, because I've had my children murdered. The government says that they're with the FMLN, but that's just a story, just lies. He used to denounce that. That's what Archbishop Romero was like. And because he told the truth, he met his death. Father Rutilio Grande was killed, and when that happened, Archbishop Romero raised his eyes to the people and never went back on his word. In his sermons, he gave the names of all the people we were looking for. For example, in my case, I was one of those who went to ask him how I could find my son who was in prison, and he used to denounce it in his sermons. He talked to the armed forces, he talked to the president, and that was what, because to tell the truth is a crime. Just to be young here is a crime. Human rights haven't improved. People are still disappeared and assassinated. They are still prisoners, lots of them in the jails. Human rights haven't improved at all, because whenever there is torture or a disappearance or a death, it's a violation of human rights. We ask organizations, people like you who come here to speak to people, to broadcast the suffering we're going through with the Salvadoran people. That's what we ask, so that these people will no longer have to bleed. so that there'll no longer be so many bombings, because in those bombings they say they kill guerrillas, but the truth is that it's the poor defenseless people, the children, the old people who can't even run. They're the ones who die. They say they've caused a lot of casualties in the guerrilla forces, but when the people come here to make the denunciations, they say, we're people who can't fend for ourselves, we can't work, the population can't function, can't manage, because they can't pay the rent, the price of food, which is so high, it can't be done. The death squads are formed by the armed forces. There's the Treasury Police, the National Guard, and then of course the military. These are the ones that make up the death squads.
The soldiers. And what does the paper say?
It's wrote over to us. It's to read.
What does it say?
S T.
Would you give me one?
The mind of man has been created by God. But when man moves off the spiritual path through the false promises of terrorists, it is the beginning of the mental decay of the people, and they turn into assassins and destroyers of peace. Salvadorian brother, don't let yourself be deceived by the false promises of terrorism. Salvadorian, the only aim of the terrorists, enemies of the people, is to kill and kidnap humble peasants. Stop terrorist aggression, reject them and denounce them. Salvadorian, you could be the next victim of the attacks which the terrorists mount indiscriminately against the civilian population. Don't allow it. Denounce them. The armed forces are here to protect you. Salvadorian brother, the enemies of the peace and democracy are in desperate straits because you, as good Salvadorian, refuse to support them. That's why they launch such ruthless attacks, killing innocent people. Reject them and denounce them. The armed forces are with you. Salvador, the terrorists who call themselves defenders of the liberty and justice continue to destroy and kill, violating human rights once again. Reject them and denounce them to your armed forces. Salvadorian brother, the terrorists of the FMLN, with the support of Russia, Cuba, and Nicaragua, have left only pain and death in many Salvadorian families. Don't let the terrorists deceive you because they only do damage to your family. Reject them and denounce them to your armed forces.
What are you doing here? Nothing. Why are you so heavily armed?
Because
Many terrorists around here. Have you had any clashes?
that's the right guy.
A lot of clashes around here.
Correct.
Yes? Is it dangerous around here or not?
A bit.
That's why they are looking for documents.
Yes.
To see if the terrorists are trying to get into El Salvador. This really is a complex war, difficult, in which we are up against a very powerful enemy with enormous resources and a great worldwide experience. I'm referring to the US government, because it's really them we are up against, even though we are fighting Salvadorians, equipped Salvadorians. US government's increased its investments in this war well over $3,000 million. They've involved their military might here, and for this type of war, their advisors, their arms, their diplomatic and political support, and their military support in the region.
What you need is your well-being, and you need to keep the city clean in order to keep healthy. In other words, we want you to be healthy and happy like the children you brought into the world. And so, you should concern yourselves with educating them better, because through education we'll achieve peace.
Salvador.
Compañeros, Archbishop Romero showed us the road to follow. He was on the side of the popular struggle carried on by our people. He recognized the part that people must play in the transformation of society. We who are a university at the service of the people, working with the people, cannot forget our role. It's because of that now that in spite of military interventions, earthquakes and defamation campaigns, we are still fighting on the side of the people. And that's why we'll be taking part in the march called by the trade unions next Tuesday, the 24th at 8 a.m. in front of the main gate. It's not the systematic and savage repression of a people struggling for their freedom that will lead the way for democracy to rule over the continent, nor is through the destruction of union offices or through attacks on neighborhood committees, universities, the church, nor through the assassination of union and political leaders, the massacres of thousands of peasants, the terrorizing of small villages and communities devastated by door-to-door searches, arson and continual harassment. Nor is it through ideological disinformation and the conjuring up of the specter of communism. It is not along this path that El Salvador will find the least violent way of salvation. Archbishop Romero, 5th January 1980.
One must be aware that our people have begun to see very clearly the role that the Americans are playing in the war. Our people now know that the prolongation of the war is due to the intervention of the Americans. That the high social costs of the war are a product of American policy, and it is definitely the U.S. government that's lengthening and maintaining the war against our people, arming and financing the army, and filling politicians' pockets with dollars, as well as those of the corrupt military. The popular support is not, as the Americans and Duarte say, followers of the politics of the FMLN and the FDR. Obviously, there are points of agreement regarding the solution to the war, the search for a political solution to the conflict. But the factors that drive our people to organize are the conditions of poverty and injustice in which they live. They have to organize, they have to struggle, even to defend their wages, their jobs, to defend their civil rights, their rights as workers. And that's one of the factors that impels them to greater levels of mobilization, to organize themselves, let's say, on a permanent basis.
University community gives a message of solidarity to the Social Security Workers Union.
El movimiento indígena en El Salvador, ustedes saben que ha sido
The indigenous people movement in El Salvador has been, as you know, one of the groups most massacred and killed during and after the conquest. In 1833, as you university brothers know from your studies, the chief Anastasio Aquino was killed. We can say he died because it wasn't a natural death. Because it wasn't a natural death.
luego en 1932, más de
Then, in 1932, more than 35,000 indigenous people were murdered in the western part of the country. And why not say so now? Since 1979, many of our indigenous brothers have been killed. You, who have read so much, you know about those 74 brothers killed at the Las Hojas Cooperative. And you also know that today there's been no justice. It's not a sin to say this. It is a sin to hide what we feel about what's done to us. The theft of our offices, the theft of our lands, that's been widely publicized. It's something that hasn't been even resolved as yet. But we Indians have faith that we will recover our offices and recover our lands.
The government gives us no answer. We're marching to the presidential building, to the government offices, so they'll tell us where our disappeared children are, where they're keeping them, whether they're alive or dead, or if they're in a clandestine jail, where they've got them. The government won't receive us. They've never received us. They just tell us when we arrive that the president isn't in, but it's because he doesn't want to give us a reply about our children. We're not going to tell him lies. What he said to us, he said it over the radio and in the papers. That those children we're looking for have gone off to the hills to join the guerrillas, or even left the country. Those are the replies he gives us.
The Christian Democrat politicians have already got houses in Miami.
Audience! Audience!
Stop conscription.
The people that struggle triumphs! Come in, we'll attend to you. You'll select 4 people, no journalists.
If the US government obliges us to go ahead, that means we'll go ahead. And there can be no doubt at all, we have no doubt at all, that the Salvadorian people, with all its forces, its union forces, now at the ready. Its political forces, its social forces in general, will finally write its own history.
Let the international press in!
And the Salvadorian press? In this poem, Roque Dalton virtually tells us how we're seen outside the country, what's thought of us, and what we are outside the country. It's titled Love Poem, dedicated especially to each and every one of you. Those who repaired the Pacific Fleet at the bases in California. Those who rotted away in the jails of Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, for being thieves, tricksters, smugglers, for being hungry. Those who are always suspected of everything.
Los siempre sospechosos de todo. Me permito remitir.
I hereby remand the accused for suspicious loitering, with the aggravating circumstance of being Salvadorian. Those who filled all the bars and brothels of all the ports and capitals of the region, the Blue Grotto, the Little Knickers, El Happy Land, the corn planters right in the middle of a foreign jungle, the kings of the crime page, those who nobody ever knows where they're from, the best craftsmen in the world, those who were riddled with bullets crossing the border, those who died from scorpion bites or yellow fever, in the health of the banana plantations, those who kept drunkenly for the national anthem and the Pacific cyclone or the snows of the north. They, the hangers-on, the beggars, the pot smokers, the dirty woke bastards, those who barely managed to get back, those who are a bit luckier, the forever undocumented, they do anything, sell anything, eat anything, the saddest sad sacks in the world. They are my compatriots, my brothers.
Hermanos. Gracias.